Welcome back, everyone. Today's guest is Mr. Steve Wisienwski. That's right, Raider great, 13-year pro, 8-time All-Pro, voted to the All-90s team, and in my opinion, a future Hall of Famer. In today's conversation, we're going to talk about going from raw natural ability to developing a mindset for excellence. We're going to talk about his early days, getting his first check from the NFL and starting to invest, how he found cryptocurrencies and what he sees with this new technology and the innovations from an investor's viewpoint. Steve's all in on crypto. This guy is tackling the digital asset space, and I'm happy to bring you that conversation. So let's get right to it. So Steve, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. How are you?
Awesome, Jerry. Thanks for having me on the show, man. I'm fired up.
Right on, man. Hey, where are you broadcasting from? Where are you located?
I'm down here in sunny Austin, Texas. And I tell you what, this COVID-19 thing has me cooped up. So if I go on and start talking about football and the NFL draft, that's tomorrow, just reel me in.
Okay. No worries. I'm down in Costa Rica, and we experienced probably about a 3-week lag to the States in the, I'd say, national response to this pandemic, in that when you guys were all starting your lockdowns, it was business as usual down here. And then 10, 15 days ago, it came to a screeching halt. All the restaurants closed. Matter of fact, there's nothing open except for a couple pharmacies, a couple of the large supermarkets, and hospitals and things
Wow.
of
And
that
is
nature.
it mandatory to wear a mask down there, Jerry? Is it mandatory?
No, it isn't mandatory, but I'll tell you one of the interesting elements living in a Latin American country where for years culturally greetings were very close.
Sure.
Even the fellas,
Yeah.
guy hugs, women with the hug and the kiss on the cheek. I mean, very, very common to have intimate greetings in that way. And that has really changed.
Sure.
People are keeping, a couple of feet in between each other. The women aren't kissing me like they used to. Yeah, it's really depressing.
Yeah. Women haven't kissed me like they used to for like 20 years. But I'm with you, man. Costa Rica is a fabulous place. The people are so warm and friendly down there. And, hey, hats off. Praying for everybody that they stay healthy and safe. We don't want anyone to get this coronavirus. But I am ready for life to move on and get people back to work.
That was interesting. So there seems to be this conflict, right? This conflict between the cabin fever. I call it cabin fever because it's all the stuff that comes with when your life is completely minimized down to basically you're in the house unless you go to the store. Right. So you've got the cabin fever camp that's like, hey, we want out. And you have, this, what I believe to be an overreaction to this by authorities saying, you've got to stay in, you got to stay in. So, I have my whole rant around, the state of health in the States. And I think the best protection against what's currently going on, and it applies to everything, is be healthy. Learn how to be healthy. Learn how to eat nutritious food. Learn how to subsidize, not with dollars, but with nutrition, your own internal immune system. You know what I mean? But that's a topic for another day. While I got you on the show, this is the thing that really, really, really excited me about having you here. And it is this. I grew up in athletics, right? I had the heart, I had the desire. I didn't have the physical talent. That's just the truth. And I'm okay with that. I accept that. But I grew up with some guys that were just darn right amazing. And they didn't add any of the other elements, and they never really went anywhere. And so I have an idea of what it takes to become a professional athlete, and an idea of what it takes to remain one, because the competition is so stiff. But I'd really like to hear in your words all the stuff that came after your natural gifts. So obviously you were born with tremendous looks, you're a damn handsome man, physical strength that you improved upon, speed, agility, and intelligence. Those are all things you were born with. What are the things that you had to learn and adopt and add to achieve the level of a professional athlete?
So great question, Jerry. And I can answer it in one word: mindset.
Mm.
And I think if you want to be a successful investor, if you want to be successful in business, if you want to be successful in your marriage relationship, if you want to be successful in sports, I mean, it starts right here. It's a mindset. So in the world of sports, whether you're a collegiate athlete, fortunate enough to play at any college level, or if you're fortunate enough to play in a professional level, even for one day, one season, one week, you have had some great physical tools. You wouldn't have been able to compete at those levels if you weren't physically gifted. But what separates the elite players, the Hall of Fame players, the guys who play a decade or more, from those who play a season or more, usually is mindset. Of course, there's a variable of injury, but any professional sport, and I've had friends in every professional sport, and they'll all say, for a baseball player, a football player, football, they say, well, it's first and foremost, it's right here. Do you stay calm under pressure? Are you willing to push yourself outside of the comfort zone in the training process, weekly in game situations? So I think that it all starts in your mind. For me, it was going to a great university like Penn State University, learning from other great players, a legendary coach in Joe Paterno. Every day was a work day. He said things like this. He said, they say that I'm awfully lucky and I win a lot of close games, that we win a lot of close games here at Penn State. And he's won several national championships. He said, I don't know if that's true or not, but he knows, and said, the harder I work, the luckier I seem to be, And it's just that kind of mindset, Jerry, that success doesn't just happen. We're going to talk about investing and maybe digital assets and what I'm doing now, but success is planned for and it's executed when there's opportunity.
And well, that was the whole point of asking the question. I honestly believe that at its core, there are behaviors and principles that will dictate long-term success or failure, and they can be learned. They can be learned. Now, if that is true, then the secret to have more people have access to it is communicating it in a way where they can take it. So, for instance, okay, I'm going to make an assumption. That you were a high school standout and that it was primarily your God-given genetic athleticism and physical talents. Am I close?
In my instance, you're typically right on something like that, Jerry. But in my instance, I was nearly killed by a car. I was hit by a car when I was 4, shattered both legs. To this day, I have 2 broken toes on my left foot and some nerve damage. So I was a little bit slow developmentally, and I was actually kind of a late bloomer. So I started, and I joke when I talk to kids, I tell them about me going out for football in 7th grade. And I say, you know why I made the team in 7th grade? They just ask why. Because you're a good player, because you were this and that. I said, because everyone made the team in 7th grade. There were no cuts. That's why I made the team. Same with 8th grade. And I was kind of average in 9th and 10th grade. And it wasn't until my 5th year of playing football, junior in high school, that I got to be one of the better players. In senior year, I earned a few scholarship offers. So I was a little bit of an outlier. I was a little bit of a late bloomer maybe than some. For me, I just realized, again, what I didn't have in largest physical frame at that time, I was going to make up for with hustle and not quitting and not backing down and kind of that wrestler's mentality. I grew up watching my older brother Leo. He was 7 years older than me, and he was a state champion wrestler. And I did not wrestle. We didn't have wrestling when we moved down to Houston, Texas. But seeing him dominate on the mat and that one-on-one intensity was something that I carried with me to the football field.
Interesting. I was a high school wrestler and would go to the county seats and wrestle and placed very well 3 out of my 4 years wrestling in high school. My football career, I was always the second string guy. Mm-hmm. So I was the second string middle linebacker because mentally I could remember to call pre-snap formations or quick adjustments is what we called them in high school. Can you call the quick adjustment? Right side, strong side, what's going on, that type of thing. I was the third string quarterback. I was the second string kicker. I was the third string blocking fullback and like the fifth string running back. Never got a starting role, but I played in every game. I mean, they trot me out there.
What state did you grow up in, Jerry? And what weight did you wrestle?
Okay, so, well, it was obviously different. I finished my senior year in high school wrestling 165s.
Mm-hmm. Super competitive, yeah. And what?
Oh my goodness, very, very, very competitive. I loved it. No matter how hard I worked, there were just so many just purely gifted athletes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Wrestling, though, and wrestling is such an intense sport. You're alone on the mat, so there's no one to blame if you didn't train. Again, in wrestling, mindset is everything. And were you in California at that time, growing up?
I was. Sonoma, California. It's in the North Bay.
Yeah.
So just north of Marin County.
Vision Quest is one of the wrestling movies of all time.
Loved
Vision
it.
Quest.
Oh, sure.
Love that movie. Yeah, that was me as well. I had that mindset. I was on a vision quest when I went to Penn State, and nothing was going to get in my way. So talk about mindset and a piggyback on that, Jerry. My parents were divorced. I was the youngest of 6 kids. It was just my mom and I. We had to go live in a little apartment for my last 2 years of high school. And at that time, my father was kind of not in the picture as much. It was my mom and kind of single mom raising me in this little 2-bedroom apartment. I went off to Penn State. Everything I owned, I took in my little Toyota Corona, $4,000 Toyota Corona that I had bought. And so I went to Penn State, and everything I owned fit in like 4 trash bags. So my home was my dorm room. My mom at that time moved with her sisters in Florida. So I virtually didn't have a home at 18 years old. Well, talk about a mindset. Like, you're on your own, and I know it was like sink or swim. And so that movie, Vision Quest, for anybody who hasn't seen it, that spoke to me, just knowing like, okay, now it's my turn to be a man, and I have to go out in this world and make it, and I'm following this dream. And so that was a motivation that's still with me today.
I just think that is incredible. I will tell you, coming out of high school, it was pretty clear to me I had no scholarship offers. And I took a bit of a different route. I kind of took a poor me, life sucks, the cards are stacked against me kind of approach. And I did some things that, although I don't regret, they didn't further my desired goals when I was in high school. And I'll leave it at that. That's maybe for another expose or something later down the road. The point of the question, and you answered it very well, thank you very much, leads me to the next question, and that is, it's hard for me to believe that you got all of that from watching a movie. So I'm going to assume, or just ask the question, did you have some mentors? Were there people, men, women, doesn't matter, that you looked to, that you saw qualities that could help you get to where you wanted to go? So through either being directly impacted by that person or observationally, you picked those up and added those to your toolbox. And what would those principles be?
Yeah, great point you just made, toolbox. I was just talking to some friends about having some tools in their toolbox. You're right. Um, I did have some mentors, and mentors, people you can look up to, are very important. Two of my brothers, to begin with, one brother served 27 years in the Air Force as a fighter pilot, retired a full colonel, went to the Air Force Academy. I saw his life and his approach, and he served in combat and in Iraq, and just admired him and his approach to life. And then another brother of mine, Leo, actually played at Penn State. He's 7 years older than I was. And then he played 4 years professionally with the Colts. He was a phenomenal defensive tackle, nose guard, had a freak knee injury, blew out his knee, and ended his career way too short. But I would actually go visit him when he was at Penn State for the summers. I would tag along. I'd go to the weight room. So I kind of grew up, emulating that. And I had three great sisters as well, who were great people and quality role models in their own way. So, yeah, I had that in my life. And then when I went to Penn State, man, I was just surrounded by the epitome of hardworking, blue-collar, team-first approach. What I love about Penn State then and now is they, for 120 years, did not have the names on their jerseys. The whole idea was you're a part of something bigger than yourself. In my first 2 seasons at Penn State, we were 23-1. We played for 2 national championships, and we won it my sophomore year. We lost my freshman year to Oklahoma. But you were around guys who were committed, who worked hard, who believed in team, and I just soaked up everything I could. And I wanted to outwork everybody on the squad. So you could see, like, that was part of my training ground.
Well said, and thank you for that. So that leads me to this. Do you have anybody in your life now that you've taken an active role in mentoring?
Yeah, thank you. So I believe in this whole idea you have a hand up and a hand down in life. And I do. I try to give back. I was a team captain. I was named team captain twice, at Penn State, and then at the Raiders probably 7 or 8 times. And I love, people always ask, what do you miss most about the 13 years I played in the National Football League? You miss the relationships, the camaraderie, the fun that you have. So just today I was texting with 5 different teammates. I saw a motivational quote last night watching a documentary by Tony Robbins, and he said, heal the boy and the man will appear. And I thought about that, heal the boy and the man will appear. And I texted that out to 5 of my former teammates, and we started this text discussion on what that meant to us and what we dealt with from childhood that's still with us today. And so, yeah, I'm actually trying to have, mentor guys right now. I've got a whole stable full of them. Some of these guys have just went through a divorce, and I'm trying to help them to be positive, encouraging, and loving, and grow past that. Some of these guys I'm trying to help mentor and share about digital assets and investing. And then there's probably 5 or 6 young people that I've got started in the world of investing, and I'm trying to cultivate that in them and share with them to bring them along.
That just warms my heart, man. Good for you and good for them. It's I don't want to say cliche, but there are actual in the internet has got tons of this data, so I don't want to go into it too much. But you hear all these stories about these incredibly gifted athletes. They get to the pro level and they're entering a world financially that they've never been in before, and their career gets cut short, and then they're broke, even though they may have actually earned millions of dollars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And one of the things I found really interesting in just a very short blurb when you and I first met, you said you started investing back in 1990. Well, I'm thinking that was right around the time you first became a pro.
Right. Yeah, exactly right.
Not at the end of your career, but in the beginning.
Oh, yeah. No, so I got my first paycheck, and it was more money than I'd ever seen in all my life. The salaries weren't what they are now. the first season, so the league minimum now for any vested veteran player is $1 million. So if you're just on a squad, the league minimum is $1 million. My first season, I made $180,000, and I was a starter in the league. And I'm not complaining. I'm just showing you how that was good money then in 1989 has changed. In the first paycheck I got, I was like, gosh, what do I do with this? And why did they take out so much money in taxes? You know, California. And I'm thinking, how come this is half of what I thought it was going to be? And so I learned real quick, like, I need to learn what to do with this. But you know what? Stepping back a minute, Jerry, you know, you touched on a point here. The league's done a much better job now by trying to teach these young kids what to do. The NFL draft has just come up in recent days, and these kids, and I was one of them, just completely dead ass broke in college. I mean, I didn't have 10 cents to rub together, and some of these kids have never had money in their entire life, and they're great kids, but no one's taught them what to do with money. They've never had money. They've never been around it. Then overnight, they sign a contract that may pay them $500,000 in a signing bonus. Maybe it's millions of dollars. Maybe now they're going to be multimillionaires overnight. Well, no one, the best intentioned kid out there knows how to really prepare for that, nor do they understand the fact that you're taxed in every venue you play. So if I go to the Kansas City Chiefs for a weekend, as I was with the Raiders, and we go to Kansas City wants me, the state of Missouri wants me to file a state return in that state. And then I go to, Chicago, and Illinois wants me to file in that state. You have the most complex tax situation you've ever seen in all your life. And then you don't know, these young men don't know who they can trust. So there's just like volt descending on them, financial advisors who want to help these guys out. Some are good, some are crooks.
Right.
And then oftentimes these kids want to help mom, dad, and uncles and aunts and things of that nature, and they get caught up spending too much money. So anyway, what I'm saying is some good kids end up not knowing what to do with it. Just like anything else, they don't teach investing in college or in high school. You really have to kind of learn by doing your own research.
Exactly. No, that's one of the motivators behind my involvement in doing stuff on YouTube. I'm putting together a business plan for an entity called the Digital Asset Association, and its primary purpose in the beginning is to just create sound education around the history of money, the movement of value in its different forms, creation versus preservation, different strategies, not anything too entailed or, but to give, so that folks can start to understand these things. And I'm doing it in the Spanish language because there are, all the problems in the world of academia that are in the United States as it pertains to financial literacy are exasperated down here in Latin America. And we have 650 million between all the countries and the island countries that speak Spanish versus the 330 million that are in the United States. And with the digital asset revolution happening, access to capital markets and ways to have money make money through investing, through business creation, etc., are going to explode in countries like Africa, in regions like Latin America, because they've never had those same entry points into capital markets like Americans have or Canadians have. So that's a project I'm working on with some folks, really interesting, very difficult because I'm not fluent in Spanish. So I can't be the presenter. I can't be the narrator. You know what I mean? It's like I have to trust and delegate and work with others to make that happen. But, it's nice to hear that you're in the space doing something like that. I'm trying to do my part. And if more people did that, then maybe we could correct a lot of this financial illiteracy before the next generation is faced with all the stuff you and I had to kind of pick up and learn on our own.
Yeah, no, you're right. My hat's off to you, Jerry. That's awesome and a worthy cause what you're doing. I love the saying. It's a proverb. You know, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. And that sounds like what you're doing. And same thing for me. If someone has interest, then I'm happy to help them. And when I played football, I was the same way. We would sign 15, 16, 17 offensive linemen in training camp. There's only 8 positions, but I'd work with anyone who wanted to work with me after practice. They could train with me. Like, I was always trying to give away my job. And I believe the same in investing. I believe in a big pie theory. That means there's not a limited amount of resources. The pie is big enough for all of us. I'll share my knowledge with you. I love how you're going to share your knowledge with me, and we learn from each other and pass it down, you know, play it forward. So hats off to you.
Great attitude. No, thank you. Thank you for that. I want to segue into crypto and digital assets because we have that in common. But before we do, because I am such a fanboy, you know what I mean? You just met me a week ago. You've been a part of my life for years, okay? Growing up
Yeah.
in the North Bay, a Raider fan, I so distinctly remember, God, so many, but the one particular one stands out. Bo Jackson. Bo takes this toss, right? He takes a toss left, boom, right? He takes his toss left. You blow your dude up, Bo, right through. I mean, and I don't know if I've ever seen a man that size move that fast with that grace ever in my life. Anyway, he shoots through that hole. The whole defense is kind of like turn their head. They're kind of like, they look like they're in slow motion chasing after him. And I see 76 still going after somebody to block, and Bo's 20 yards downfield.
Yeah.
I love that about you, man. I always love that part of your game. Not that you didn't have a lot of other incredible elements to your game. You don't play 13 years in the NFL, make 8 Pro Bowls, become the 90s all-decade team without having a full game.
Yeah.
Your hustle, even after what seemingly you're out of the play. Seemingly you're out of the play. And you just always charged for that next guy until the whistle blew. And that to me endeared you in my heart as a Raiders fan until the day I die. So
thank you very
I
much.
just wanted to say thank you.
That was my mindset. Going back to mindset, my mindset was you play till the whistle blows. So if the whistle hasn't blown, you're still alive. Go find someone to block. And I had the privilege of blocking for amazing players like a Bo Jackson and a Marcus Allen, and Eric Dickerson later came through the Raiders, Roger Craig, Napoleon Kaufman, Tyrone Wheatley, Charlie Garner, so many great guys. Nick Bell, Greg Bell, I could go on and on and on. But for people who maybe don't know sports, Bo Jackson was one of the finest athletes ever to play in pro sports. If you saw him without his shirt on, he looked like an NFL linebacker. He was like a ripped, muscular 230, 235, and he just looked like a linebacker, you know, just chiseled, naturally gifted. But then he was the fastest guy on the football team, which made no sense whatsoever. At the combine, I know he ran a 4.2 something, one of the fastest times at that point ever recorded. Unbelievable. So he's the fastest guy, built like a linebacker. But then he had instincts. He had the vision. Great running backs have a great vision. You just can't coach it. They can feel pressure coming this way, and they don't even see it. And they make a cut based on something they didn't even see, but they felt. And so Bo Jackson was one of those great players. You just had to stay on your guy. Just try to stay in front of him. We may call a sweep to the right, and then a couple of seconds later, you see the defense reacting to the left. You know, he's cut it back all the way across the field. So he was absolutely phenomenal, such a great gentleman off the field. But then I'll have to say, which was just freakish, was that he was a phenomenal baseball player. Yeah. And many people thought he would have been a Hall of Fame baseball player if he just focused on baseball. He got hurt playing football in a game. I was blocking for him. It seemed like a meaningless tackle on the edge of the sideline against the Cincinnati Bengals. It ended up pulling his hip out of socket. He was never the same again and had to retire from pro sports. But he made the all-star team in baseball in the same calendar year as making the Pro Bowl in football. And I mean, if you know sports, it's like, that's unreal. He was the best at two sports at the same time. It was phenomenal to be around guys.
Well, and a good man. I always was a Bo Jackson
Great
fan.
man.
He seemed to always be very humble, grounded, and just, I mean, it was, you can't take your eyes off a guy like that. If you grow up playing sports, whether you ever go to college or do any of those kind of things, and you have any kind of appreciation for anything athletic, when you see a guy like that come through, it's like, wow, because it's hard. It's difficult. So anyway, good for you that you got to have that experience, because you're right. You got to play with absolute legends.
Oh yeah.
Tim Brown, legend. Jerry Rice, legend. I mean, legend. I mean, we could spend all day just talking about, just dropping names of the dudes that you hung out in the locker room with. However, this show isn't about that.
Yeah.
Let's get into how a guy that really was focused back when he got his first NFL paycheck on preserving your newfound wealth, we'll call it, to now, here you are some years later, you're actually an investor in educating yourself in the digital asset space, which at its, the truth is digital assets are not a safe bet right now. Most of us believe the future is there for it, but that's no guarantee. It's not like investing in a Microsoft and getting a steady 3% yield dividend, you know what I mean, that you can count on for the next 30, 40 years. We don't really know where this is going to go. So you went from learning how to preserve wealth and maintain capital to now you're out there on the yield curve, so to speak, in a volatile, risky, brand new thing. Where do you make that switch? Where did that switch come from, and what's really attracted you about this?
Yeah, so just to bring you up to speed there. So in 1989, I started reading everything I could read. I was a business major at Penn State, love Penn State, but they don't teach them anything about investing money. And they still don't in college. They still don't in high school. So investing is one of those activities you have to learn from other people, and you have to be willing to sacrifice and spend some time to do it. I say that nobody gets wealthy by accident. I mean, you have to do some research. I've got a pen and a paper here, Jerry. I'm going to take notes on things that you tell me. And I was researching Southwest Airlines before you called. I'm still looking for opportunities in this market. Hey, what stocks have been beat up in this market that I think will respond well, when we get to travel again. So it's a process. I learned and read a lot of books. I've been investing in stocks for 30 years. My brother-in-law manages a private equity investment company. I've learned a lot from him and put a dime on a bunch of his deals over the years. In the Bay Area, I was part of something called the Keiretsu Forum, which was an angel investing network, like a Shark Tank. So I got to hear people present ideas and how they were going to roll out their companies, and great learning experience. And so even now, like, I follow a whole number of YouTube providers, content providers in investing, on the economy, and also in digital assets. So that kind of gets us up to speed where I am. About 2 years ago, I said, this Bitcoin thing, I don't know anything about it. It sounds ridiculous. Bitcoin in 2017 was going up. It was $15,000, $16,000, $17,000. It ended up going up almost to $20,000. And I thought, this is nuts. Like, people are crazy. But let me study it. Let me read what this is all about. And as I read, suddenly a few things jumped off the papers to me. Blockchain technology. Blockchain technology, I thought, oh my goodness, this is disruptive technology. It's transformative. It is a decentralized ledger that can keep track of a digital transaction. It's safe, it's secure, it's efficient. I see a future use for this. And the question I asked then, and the question I encourage everybody to ask now, is how do I profit from the world's transition to blockchain technology? And then that led me down the rabbit trail to cryptocurrencies. Okay, well, they're built on blockchain technology. Let me study them. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm studying the best projects. I think it's very similar to the mid 1990s of the internet stocks that I saw in the Bay Area. Young, emerging technology companies, very promising, but a very volatile asset class. So I'm trying to learn all I can on this subject of digital assets.
Oh, that is right on, man. I had a similar experience to you in that I was cognizant of Bitcoin well before I ever got in. And I kind of just dismissed it as this hairy-fairy internet money thing because I never made the connection how it could transition from Bitcoin into US dollars. And at that time, US dollars had value because I knew many different ways to utilize them, right? The Bitcoin thing, I didn't understand any of that. But I was down in Costa Rica before I moved down here getting LASIK eye surgery. And this is in January of 2018. And I'd been on the phone earlier with a buddy of mine. He had bought into some of this Bitcoin. And, you know, he says, it's just exploding. I just bought a Bitcoin for $15,000, da 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 da. Everybody's saying it's going to go to 100,000. I was like, wow, if that's true, that's great. I had the argument at the time, there's nothing behind it. It's not backed by gold. It's not backed by real estate. There's no real value behind it. That was my stance at the time. Next day, I'm down in the restaurant of the hotel having breakfast, and the waiter, who sees me on my phone checking my Charles Schwab account, you know, after the market's opened, he says, so you're an investor? I say, yeah, I do some investing, a little bit. He says, I'm an investor. I said, oh, really? What do you invest in? He says, well, I invest in Bitcoin and Ethereum contracts. I said, what's this? He says, I invest my money in mining pools, and as they earn Bitcoin and cash them out, I get paid. I said, oh, really? That's interesting. And he actually made a strong enough case that when I returned home February 1st, 2018, I got on the computer and I started researching. 2 weeks later, I made my first investment.
So the timing wasn't probably right. Same as me.
And by June of 2018, as the market kept stepping down, I had literally average cost in my entire equity portfolio into digital assets, because it not only all the things that I remember through the 1990s internet boom, right? But all the stuff, the transformation I saw in communication as it pertained to the transition from, you know, landline technology to analog cellular and then digital cellular. Mm-hmm. And it made sense that the innovation is going to happen because capital always flows to real value in the end.
Yeah.
You know, that's just a tried and true thing about money. So I'm realizing that the timing isn't right. I leave California, come down to Costa Rica, where I can really scale my life down, right? I live on $350 a month. That's my fully furnished studio apartment with cable and internet and electricity, water, all that stuff, and food for $350 a month, while I let the innovation that's taking place get a foothold. And then obviously I believe value and capital will flow to this market because of what it's doing. It's taken longer than I suspected, and that's okay. But I'm all in, hook, line, and sinker. I believe this is the next thing. And what this time has allowed me to do is really study not only the projects, but what the projects are dislocating, right? The legacy system. So what I've learned about the history of money, what I've learned about how monetary policy is generated, and you know what I mean? Going from the Monster and Jekyll Island to Bretton Woods to these Davos summits every year to, you know, understanding what the IMF does and what the Bank of International Settlements does and what the World Bank does, and how all, you know, the real inner workings of our financial networks. It's been incredible, that rabbit hole of learning.
Well, that's awesome, man. That sounds fun to me, Jerry. I tell you what, I could come down there and be a roommate. We could split some of the costs. The food bill's going to go up, but I mean, I would love to be down in Costa Rica. I see your vision and your plan, and you know, so I tell everybody that I counsel, have a plan first and foremost. So have an investment plan. Like, we're facing the greatest financial crisis since the Great Depression. So I ask people, like, do you have a plan? Like, what's your plan to make money in this environment? You need to have a plan. Secondly, I tell people, learn all you can, like now. Learn all you can right now. Ask all the questions you can, and then get off zero. That means start investing. Put $50. Yesterday, I helped a young lady get started with $50 into 2 different crypto projects. And it was very exciting and very rewarding. But we all have to start somewhere. And then as far as getting knowledge, you know, we all have the internet now. So there's some great websites you can go study the best projects. When we talk about digital assets, there's like 3,000 cryptocurrencies out there, but we're kind of focusing on the top 20 projects. Let's wrap our arms around the top 5 projects to start with. And the question we want to ask is, what does this project do? What problem are they solving? Is there a real market to the problem they're solving? And then how are they doing solving the problem? Are they making traction? Are they gaining ground? Or are they losing ground? And if you can understand the first 5 projects, and the first one is a spoiler alert, it's Bitcoin. Bitcoin is kind of the granddaddy, the original gangster, the OG. Bitcoin is the first project, and then learn about 4 projects behind that and market cap. You're off to a great start. You'll know more than 98% of the world. And if you were lucky enough to put $50 or $100 into these projects, you are way, way, way ahead of the curve, because we're very early in this process with just explosive growth potential and exciting emerging technology.
Yeah, isn't it incredible? So another thing that I found really kind of cool is, although you are not seeking an actual income from your research and what you're learning, that you actually have put together a newsletter for your friends and family. Go, if you could share what motivated you to do that, number one, and what you're learning about yourself by doing that.
Yeah. Okay. So I have to clarify, I'm not an investment advisor. I only give out information for entertainment purposes only. I don't make a dime from this from anybody. I have nothing to sell anyone. And so it's not a newsletter. It's just simply, I started sending my friends and family an email about some of the things I was learning. And that circle of friends and family members has grown considerably. But I simply, typically weekly, sometimes twice a week, will share some things right on the internet off of CoinDesk, the Daily Hodl, Cointelegraph. Those are 3 great websites. I'll share some links to YouTube providers that gave a great 10-minute interview and presented some information. And I'll say, hey, this is some things you should look at. These are some things that I'm looking at. It's worth your time. And some of these projects, Jerry, I'm so excited. I'm like literally waving my hands to anyone who will listen. Like, I've done nothing in this space typically but lose money, because I got in starting at the wrong time. You know, a project like XRP, I've been in for, you know, almost 2 years, and it's just gone down and down and down.
Yeah.
As the price has gone down, though, they've just continued to hit and stride and build their business plan and their prospects and their partnerships. And so the price is going down, and yet the the price is going down, but the value, the business development is going up. And so that's what I look for as a value investor, where you see this disconnection where book value or intrinsic value doesn't line up at all with the price. And I'm seeing that in a lot of digital asset projects. They're really developing some exciting technologies that we believe will have a real world use case. But right now, the price has been beaten to a pulp. Some of these projects are off their high by 90 and 95%. And there's a saying in investing, you can't hurt yourself falling from the curb. I feel like if you were getting in now, truly the price has been beat up. You know, it may go down a little further, but you're not going to hurt yourself falling from the curb. And, you know, for example, to one project I was just talking about, XRP, their price, give or take, is around 19 cents a coin. Their all-time high is $3.80 in 2017. Developmentally speaking, they're so much further than they were in 2017. Now over 400 banking partners signed, name recognition, just the development of their product is night and day from where they were off their all-time high. Yet from 19 cents, if we just got back to the all-time high of $3.80, you're looking at a 19x return. So I don't know 19x return in my life, but I see something like this and I think, you know what, not only is it possible, I think it's probable it could get back and far exceed their all-time high. So that's what gets me excited.
I could not agree more. I could not agree more. So let me ask you this. I'll tell you what I do and then I'll ask you what you do. I came at this where I do a little research. I believe I have an idea what's going on. I got a little skin in the game. And once I got a little skin in the game, like the real deep dive would start. How do you approach a project? Do you approach a project with hardcore study first before you even drop a dime into it?
Yeah. So
what's that process for you like?
Yeah. So I do. Again, I've got a note. I could show you that I was doing research all morning. I'll read crypto news and see what's latest on the news. Then I'll go to my most trusted crypto content providers and I'll skim through and listen to those guys. And then I just do my own research. And so I want to find projects that have a real world use case. So the first question anyone should ask on any project is, what do they do and what problem are they solving? Because there's a lot of really cool technologies, but if nobody uses it, right? If they're not solving a problem, it's not going to be adopted. In 1, 3, 5 years from now, a lot of these companies are going to come and go. So that's what I do. I do some research. The promising projects, I'll put a little in Jerry. I may get a real small position, a few $100s for me as a small position, maybe a couple $1,000s in a position. But before I put more money in it, you know, I think every one of us should be very critical. Like, I hope every crypto project does well. We don't need to hate on other crypto projects or be very tribal. Like, I want them all to succeed. But we should be critical. Like, you know, XRP and Brad Garlinghouse is the CEO of the parent company Ripple. I love him. He's smart. He's intelligent, but he's not a family member. I'm going to be very critical to see, like, are they hitting on their developmental timeline? Are they gaining traction? Are they building partnerships or losing partnerships? And have that mindset with every project. But the ones I add into, I usually kind of ease into. I kind of dollar cost average into them. And I want to see how they're doing over time. And we are so early. People forget this. If it was a baseball game, we're at the bottom of the first inning or the start of the second inning. I mean, like, this is early in the game. So you don't have to feel like I need to go all in or I've missed the run up. You really haven't. What you need to do is learn all you can, you know, get your questions answered, talk to guys like yourself, learn from YouTube content providers and websites, and then just get off zero, ease into the market.
Good philosophy.
Yeah, but I don't go all in overnight. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I didn't go in all in overnight either, but for me, as the market was sliding down and my knowledge base was increasing and the case, right? The case to be made. You talked about like fundamental milestones being met. When I'm watching like publicly announced partnership production contracts, and I know what that means in the world of business. A production contract means you're getting paid. We're not
Yes.
testing. It's not, oh, we're kicking the tires. No,
Right.
the company committed money for a length of time on the contract to utilize this technology. To me, that's the sale. The sale was done. That's like sales revenue, guaranteed. So as I'm watching, in case in point, this company Ripple, all throughout 2018, it seemed like every day something fundamental, some news that was fundamental was being released. Now, there was also a ton of noise and extrapolation and cartoon characters and riddlers doing, all that kind of stuff. I didn't pay much attention to that. But partnerships being announced and watching the network grow, understanding things like Metcalfe's law, that networks get more valuable as they get larger, and seeing the price continue to go down, to me, every time the price went down, to me, I was gaining value because I was, bringing my average cost down. So that was one element. But here was the other element. And this is what really, really sold me on digital assets as a space. Never in my life have I seen the human capital draw to a space. And when I'm saying, I'm talking about from every sector. So the finest software engineers are going into blockchain projects. The sharpest minds in investment. When you see the Nova Gratzes and the Barry Silberts and the Dan Tapios get into the space, the most incredible analysts, guys that get paid $40,000 a year by companies to provide them his thoughts on things. Guys like Raoul Powell and Mark Yusko and Grant Williams, these guys that they don't need crypto. They don't need a high risk investment. I mean, they believe me, they've made their money. They're not
No, you make a
billionaires.
great point, Jerry. If you look at the hires that Ripple has made, and for some of your viewers not know, San Francisco-based company Ripple, their token that they use to move money cross-border is called XRP. The people and the quality of hires they've had, people leaving great firms, FANG stocks, they're leaving to go to Ripple for a reason, not because they want to take a risk, but they say this is going to be the next great company. And to your point about value and price, I just wrote about this past week. Again, that we look as value investors to find a project that we believe has a high intrinsic value, a high book value, and a low price. Because I understand these projects so well, because I see the roadmap of a Ripple and the XRP, I sleep real well at night, even though this is a volatile asset class. Prices likely could pull back 20 or 30%. Not going to be shaken. If it goes from 19 cents to 9 cents, I'm not flinching because I know where the end game is. I'm looking at 1 year out, 3 years out, 5 years out, and I see if we're adopted, if we can carve out market share, this goes to $3, $5, $10 based on the volume of business on this network, carried on the network. So understanding value is very important. And then I want to share that, you talked about great companies. A lot of the people are leaving great companies. A great company out there is Amazon. Yeah. I have a package at the door waiting for me, just delivered from Amazon. Here in the States, we all use Amazon. I didn't buy any of the stock, and I kicked myself. 5 years ago, it was $75 a share, and I was like, that seems kind of expensive. But it seemed kind of expensive because I didn't understand the project. I didn't say, hey, what's their team? What technology do they have that makes them better than anyone else? What's their roadmap? What's their potential use case? And so I just kind of blindly passed on $5. Well, 3 times over the life of Amazon, their stock has actually gone up and gone down more than 80%. Think about that. 3 times the stock is dove more than 80%. That's pretty darn volatile to me. The question is, what was the best time to sell? The best time to sell was never, okay? Because although it did a little roller coaster 3 different times, it went from $75 5 years ago to $2,400 today. That's a 25x return. And so again, great project, great team. The timing was right. They had a technical advantage, an advantage in their distribution system that makes them more efficient than anyone else. Same thing we're going to see with some of these digital assets. Some of these projects are going to die. Some of these projects are going to be the next Amazon.coms. And in the case of Ripple, CEO Brad Garlinghouse has said they want to be the Amazon of blockchain. And I absolutely believe they will one day be the Amazon of blockchain. So that's what gets me excited, is to find the next Amazons and to stick with them, through the high times and the low times.
Sure. No, I get it. There's talking about specifically XRP, the XRP ledger with Ripple, take Ripple aside. One of the things I found really interesting is that with a consensus-based algorithm that does not require proof of work to secure the system, and the fact that they've this is what they're banking on for the XRP ledger to be successful, is that no incentive for validation is the best incentive. And it was through that I kind of reversed engineered and really had to re-examine my biases around your proof of work coins. And I'm not here to disparage any coin. I want everything to do well also. But when I was really thinking about that, this other project happened to, right as this is the thinking. So I'm trying to learn and really understand economics, not from a dollar perspective, but in a energy perspective.
Sure.
Right? And so then this project Casino Coin comes across my desk, and I learned that it's basically built on the XRP ledger. All right. So I know if what I know is true, then we've got at least a foundation of sustainability over the long haul, because I have questions about proof of work networks over the long haul. Once the minting of coins through block creation, once the code exhausts the number of coins, I don't know what the incentive is for the miners to secure the system, and I can't really get an answer from anybody. But okay, longevity, check. Speed, efficiency, transparent, okay, check. What industry is it in? Well, it's in the gambling industry. I was a pro poker player for a couple of years when we had an economic downturn back in 2000. And times were kind of tough. And I was playing cards. I had to support my son. I know what it's like to have to carry money in and out of casinos, out to parking lots. And I'm not talking about a few $100.
Mm-hmm.
It's a weird place to be in when it's dark outside and you have to walk out there with 25 grand in your pocket, get in a car and drive somewhere else. You don't know if you're going to be followed and robbed. It's not secure. It doesn't feel secure.
I don't know what you mean.
Oh, okay.
I've never been any good at gambling. I don't gamble much, but when I go to the casinos, I'm there to eat it. I'm there for the buffet. We should work together. Just buy me the buffet and I'll walk you out to your car.
And that wouldn't be a bad idea. But the point was, here's this project addressing a multi-billion dollar a year industry that makes it faster, safer, and more secure to move value, which every participant in the ecosystem will value from. Okay, this is what I'm looking at. This has promise. Now, what are they doing with their business? Well, guess what? They actually have signed contracts. They are making ground in that industry. Okay, great. All right, check. Keep following them. Have I put any money in yet? No, but I'm following them. Here's another one. How about this? The tokenization of things, actual other assets becoming value on the blockchain.
Let me go back to Casino Coin for you, because here's a project I don't know, Jerry. And so you're bringing it to my attention. I took some notes and I'll do some research on it. That's how this thing gets started. I'll go to a bit screener and I'll
Right.
start looking at it. And I want to see the team. I want to see the problem they're solving. The tokenomics. Is there 500 billion tokens or there's 5 million tokens? That makes a big difference. Where can I buy these tokens? What exchanges carry it? What kind of daily volume is on there? Because we don't want to get a token that has no volume and it's not on any major exchanges. You'll never sell that token. And then I'll say, hey, can someone else do the job that they're doing? They're solving a problem that you mentioned. It seems like a real problem, seems like a viable market, but could XRP simply do that? Could basic attention token simply be the casino coin? Or could a casino use any? Okay, can you hear me now?
Perfect. We had some internet issue for a moment, it appears.
Yeah. So anyway, I was saying, thank you for the tip on casino coin. I would research it, and those are the questions that I would ask about any token, and learn all you can. This could be the next big thing, it really could. So that's great. And then you just touched on something. It's such an enormous talk. It could be a whole hour in itself. The tokenization of everything. That's where we're going. This is why mainstream brokerages want to get in now. They want to profit from selling digital assets, sure. And they want to profit from the custodial side of holding digital assets, absolutely. But they realize things are going to be tokenized. Traditional stocks will eventually be tokenized and on a blockchain and will sell 24/7. And then commercial properties, even things of that nature, will be tokenized. So I could pull out $50, $100 if it was tokenized, and buy some of Allegiant Stadium, the Raiders' new stadium in Las Vegas, for example. And we could trade that 24/7 on a blockchain. So you're right. The token and digitization of tokens, that's the future. It's enormous. And these are some of the projects I'm looking at, saying like, hey, who's going to help with this process? Who's going to help facilitate this process? And that's something I'd like to be involved with.
Right on. Talk about a high note, right? If we'd said nothing else right there, that was a heck of a crescendo, in my opinion. So very eloquently stated. I'm looking at the clock. I've capitalized a ton of your time. I want you to know how grateful I am that you took it to share with me. I look forward to many more conversations online, offline, what have you. You're my kind of people. I'm proud to have supported you before I knew you as a man. And I'm even more impressed with you as a man than you were as a football player. And you were a damn good football player. In my opinion, Hall of Famer. Hopefully that will change.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry. Always great talking with you. I love your depth and your breadth of knowledge, and your attitude is absolutely refreshing. So all the best to your one-on-one audience, and I'm excited for you to see this show continue to grow. Thanks for having me on today.
All right, folks, and there it was. Thank you for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you the next time on One-on-One with Jerry Hall. And until then, Pura Vida.